Hi everyone, today I wanted to do something a little different. You may or may not be aware that I used to be a dairy farmer. So I thought that it would be fun today to tell you a little bit about my life and to tell you what it was like for me to be a female dairy farmer in a very male-dominant profession back when we were farming. If you like these types of videos, please give this one a thumbs up and let me know if there are any other topics that you would like me to cover or if you have any other questions. I will link all of the makeup that I'm using in the description box below the video. So just click on the show more and it will have everything listed in the order that I use it. I hope that you enjoy my story. And if I sound still a little sick, I still am. Can't get rid of whatever this is, but I did go see the doctor and he put me on a puffer. How did I become a dairy farmer? Well, I married a dairy farmer. I met my husband the summer before I was going to college. I had always wanted to be a veterinarian, and I could have been. I mean, I had the marks, but I guess I just didn't have the confidence in myself because I would have had to move like 6 hours away from home, and I'd never really been anywhere on my own as a teenager. So I just decided I would go to the community college. I was taking some office administration. That was what I was going to graduate with, but then I met my husband, we got engaged, and I think it was 2 days after we got married. We never got a honeymoon because his dad was sick with cancer. His father became bedridden. My husband was the only one working on the farm with his elderly father, so he asked me if I could help him, and I'm like, okay, but I don't know anything about cows. I loved animals, but I mean, I grew up with dogs, so I didn't know anything about cows. I'd never been near a cow. So that is how my life began as a dairy farmer. So back in the late 80s, that was in 1988. There were women, of course, that have always worked on the farm, but it just seemed that there was a culture that if a woman worked on the farm, she was just the farmer's wife. And that irritated me. It still irritates me so much because I find, like in any profession, but I'm just talking about farming because that's what this video is about, that the woman is often overlooked and all of the recognition goes to her husband. And that really rubbed me the wrong way. If you would have known me when I was like young, I was very shy, very timid. So I would not speak up, but you know, that soon changed after some things that I went through in my life. But I always found that it was other women in the farming community that would refer to a woman as just the farmer's wife. And that really did not sit well with me. I've always thought that even as a young child, you know, that women just weren't given the credit that we were due. So how it worked was my husband had a very small family farm. It was just him and his dad, and his dad was elderly. My husband didn't really like the cows. He was more about, you know, growing the crops, doing the field work, stuff like that, which was fine. It worked for them. So whenever I came in, it was going to be my job to look after the cows. But of course, like, he had to teach me, you know, how to put the milkers together, like how not to get kicked in the head. It's a very dangerous profession, and I mean, I could do a video just on all the injuries we both sustained in the 20 years we were dairy farming. So basically, I was thrown into the, I don't know, thrown into the fire or whatever that saying is, and I started like taking care of the cows. Back then there was no internet, so it's not like I could go to Google. So anytime we were near like a vet, had a vet over, later on we'd get a nutritionist for the cows because they do require special diets at different stages in their lactation. I would grill the people and ask them like I was like a sponge, just, you know, devouring all of the information that they could tell me about cows, how to treat a cow like with her food and her different needs at her different stages in life. Then I took a course where I was artificially inseminating the cows. Some farmers had bulls, but bulls are very, very unpredictable and very, very dangerous. A few farmers every year get killed by a bull. They're nuts. And sometimes cows can be too. So that is why we were doing artificial insemination. Our conception rates, I'm probably getting ahead of myself and going into too much detail, but it was just, there's a certain window where the cow has to be bred in order to conceive. And if you're relying on an outdoor service, they usually don't come at the best times. They'll come like maybe first thing in the morning, when really the best time is 4 at night. So I said that I was going to take the course and I was going to do it myself, which I did. And I actually did quite a good job at it. And actually, as we were getting close to our end of our farming career, I was getting into embryo transfers, and we had some really, really good cattle. Like, it's something that takes generations, like decades, to build up to. And I was just so proud of the work that we had done in the 20 years before we had to sell due to my husband's health. Where was I going with this? So as a young, bride, 20 years old, which is ridiculous. My daughter told me, well, she's 30 now, but if she would have told me at 20 she was getting married, I would have been like, no, we need to sit down and talk. Like, you don't know anything at 20. It took me a while, to catch on, but I was getting pretty darn good at it. They had really not invested a lot into their business because the father was older. My husband wasn't sure, did he want to farm? He didn't know what he wanted to do. And he's older than me. We got a problem. The cows were producing too much milk because they really liked me and they liked how I changed their diet and way of doing things. So it's a good problem to have, but sometimes men can be a stick in the mud. We ended up having to get our first bank loan. We had to buy a bigger milk tank because I had the cows producing so well. They were so happy and healthy that they were giving so much milk that the milk was actually overflowing in the bulk tank. So we had to get a new bulk tank. Then we got a pipeline because we used to use these buckets which weighed 50 pounds. I'd have to lift them myself, empty the bucket with one hand because this hand would be holding the milking machine. Oh yeah, it was a real learning curve. And at first I was terrified of the cows. They were huge. Like I said, I had never been close to a cow. So we invested a lot in cow comfort, got them all mattresses, redid the barn. Just everything was built around how to have a happy, healthy herd. Because whenever they're happy and healthy, that is good. You don't want a sick cow because things can go bad real quick. And it's terrible to see an animal sick and also to have to lose one. Plus, it's a big financial hit. So anyways, I learned about nutrition. I took courses on nutrition and animal health. You can go to university now for a 4-year course on this. I really don't like it when people say, oh, just a farmer, farmers are stupid. That is not the case. You have to be a scientist today to be a farmer because things are so complicated. But anyways, let's get back to me and my life as a farmer because I could go on for hours about this. So that's how I became a farmer. I basically married into it. And, I didn't really have a job lined up after we got married. So I said, sure, I would help you. And, it was great because he didn't like the cows. I liked the cows. I was scared of the machinery because, he had asked me a few times to help with the machinery. And once I almost tipped the tractor on a hill and that just terrified me. And I said, no, I am not doing this ever, ever again. It's not for me. Of course, he would still help me whenever a heifer turns into a cow, and you do that by giving birth to your first calf. Of course, they're not used to you touching them. They don't know what a milking machine is. They don't know what just happened to them. So it can be pretty intense when you have to bend down, stick your head near her udder where her foot is, and pretty, quickly she's gonna kick you in the head or the face. That has happened a lot. It's not fun, it's very dangerous. So my husband and I, he would, usually break them in. He'd be the one down below putting the milker on. And I would, be calming her down, like talking to her gently, just trying to calm her down. And that usually takes maybe 1 to 2 weeks depending on the animal. Some animals are just nuts, they never get over it. And if you have an animal like that, just get rid of it, because I got hurt very badly, which I'm going to talk to you about in a few minutes. It is not worth it. So what was it like being the only female farmer going to, you know, all these meetings and stuff that in the winter they would hold like meetings so you could learn about the new, you know, different hybrids of corn or soybeans or grain. And then once in a while there'd be like a meeting about dairy, animal health. And I'd be the only woman in a room with maybe, you know, 20, 30 men. And you know what men can be like sometimes. Most of the men were pretty nice, you know, they acknowledged me. They would talk to me. They thought that it was very interesting that I took such an interest in the cows. But then when they soon began to realize that it was me that was really making the decisions regarding the cows, a lot of them came to really respect me, which was nice. And it was also nice that after a little while, some of their wives would start coming to the meeting. So it was really nice to have, you know, like a woman to talk to, and because it can be kind of a lonely job because you're working with yourself, right? So that was nice. But there were some jerks that would just like, oh, why are you here? But this one guy in particular, he was a feed dealer, and we had never like bought anything from them. We were dealing with a different company. He would always show up at 4:30 in the evening when I was putting the milkers together, because we milked at 5 and 5, 12 hours apart. So he would show up, wouldn't even acknowledge me, and just immediately walk into the barn, which is like really irritating and a huge no-no, because you can bring diseases into barns. And it's just rude. Like, you just don't walk into somebody's house, right? So he would want to like try and talk to my husband about, you know, converting us to his brand. My husband would say, well, you gotta go talk to Cathy. She makes all the decisions about the cows, like, and the nutrition. Like, that's her department. So then, of course, he would come back with his tail between his legs, and he'd want to, you know, talk to me, and I would say, no, there's the door, use it. And that's how I soon learned how to stand my ground and not be so shy, because a lot of these men were just not nice to me. And I soon found out that, you know, if I was going to survive, I had to stand up for myself. And there's no way that I'm giving you business if you couldn't even acknowledge me. So if you don't respect me, you know, there's the door, please leave. I have cows to milk. There were a few creepy guys, in particular one trucker. We were hauling beans, and I had to go see my husband for some reason in the field, and I don't know, I think somebody needed him, or I don't know. He needed to go back to the farm, and he stranded me. I had no vehicle. So of course the truck driver was coming back to the farm. So I said, can I hitch a ride home with you? Otherwise it's gonna be a long walk home. My husband seems to have forgot about me. So he said, oh yeah, no problem. And the minute I got in the cab of the truck, he just turned into a creep. So, you know, there were a few times where you would run into, I don't know, creepy people, creepy guys. Yeah, because a lot of the times I would be alone in the barn. And it's kind of spooky at 5 in the morning in the winter being alone in the barn. Because all you hear are like the chains for the cows, their necklaces. Yeah, I was always worried, like, you know, was we gonna go to the barn and there was gonna be like somebody in there? Because you don't lock your barn because you're always afraid of fire. You want to be able to get the cows out if you're not at home. So that was something that always kind of spooked me. And we didn't live like right beside the barn, we lived down the road. So I would have to walk to the barn by myself because my husband was already there in the dark, and you know, there might be coyotes out, and it was kind of really spooky at times. So I really did enjoy, I loved the cows, I loved working with the cows. It was so fun just to see how we progressed. They were wonderful. Like, most of them were very, very nice, very quiet. But there were a few that were just complete psychos. I was 20 when we got married. I was 24 and I had my daughter. So I guess around when I was 22. My job, after I had milk and everything, we had some heifers, which are like teenage cows, outside of the barn in a pen. They were out there for the summer to get some exercise. So my job was to go fill their trough with water and to give them some grain. So of course I'm alone. My husband's, you know, in the other calf barn taking care of the calves. I'm doing my thing, filling up their bucket, and the next thing I know, there's this heifer that weighs probably about 1,100 pounds, and she charges me. And she threw me up against a metal gate. And of course, I'm there all alone. There's nobody around. Well, I was fine, nothing broke, but I was so sore. And you could see in my back when I took my shirt off, on my bruises, like the marks from the metal gate. I can't get my words today. Anyways, we should have got rid of that nutcase right then and there. Because the following summer, she was at a neighbor's up the road because the neighbor had a pasture, was growing up, and if you put like heifers or dry cows out there, they'll keep the brush down, they'll, you know, graze and whatever. So my husband wanted to do this, and I'm thinking, I think this is a really bad idea because I don't know how good the fence is, like as the guy like taking care of it, whatever. But my husband said, no, we should do it, so whatever. So anyways, I get home after morning chores, showered, and getting my clothes on because I was going into the city to do groceries, run some errands. As I'm going out the door, the phone rings. This is before cell phones. It's the lady up the road. Your heifers are out. I knew this would happen. I don't have time for this today. That's what I said to myself. So anyways, hop in the truck, go find my husband. We go up the road. I'm dressed in my shorts, top, and I think I have flip-flops on because, you know, I was going to town. It was hot. It was in the summertime. My eye pencil just broke. We get up the road. We both hop out of the truck. I hop the fence first. And my mother-in-law always lectured me, you should have a stick in your hand when you're around those cows. And I'm like, I'm not going to hit them. Like, I love animals. I'm not going to abuse them. Well, you should have a stick in your hand. My husband was on the other side of the fence. Like the cows, the heifers had come down to near where their garage was. Like there was a fence there, but they had broken it from the other side of the creek. So anyways, he's talking to the neighbor. All I remember is that the psychopath that threw me up against the gate last year was looking at me like she was a bull. Somehow she got behind me. I don't remember much. I remember feeling, you know, the small of your back, just above your butt, feeling a huge thump, and it hurt. And I went flying up in the air, maybe 3 or 4 feet. I immediately went like this to shield myself because there were rocks around, and I fell face down, and then she proceeded to run all over me. The neighbor sees it happen. I don't think my husband had seen it happen. He jumps the fence, comes to pick me up. I was a lot thinner back then. He was a lot stronger. He picks me up, gets me on the other side of the fence. I think she must have opened the gate or something. Lays me on the ground. She's crying and screaming. I'm like just stunned, like what just happened? I can't feel anything below my waist. So my husband's yelling at her, call an ambulance. She gets on the phone, calls the ambulance, they come. All I remember is I was in emergency. I remember my parents coming, my husband must have called them turning the corner to come into my room, and I just remember my dad's face, and he looked like he had seen a ghost. And then one of my brothers showed up, and I'm thinking, what is going on here? I still couldn't feel anything. They must have sent me for scans, like, I don't remember. That was over 30 years ago. So anyways, eventually the feeling came back, but she had damaged a certain area, my lower back. Like, didn't break it or anything. It was just really, really bruised and swollen. So of course, I couldn't work for about 6 weeks. When you're self-employed, like, you don't get paid if you don't work. But of course, I mean, we got paid because somebody still had to feed and milk the cows. So I don't know, I think neighbors pitched in and helped us. I have to tell you, that was one of the most scariest times in my life because I didn't know if I was going to end up, you know, not being able to feel my legs. Was it going to end up in a wheelchair? So I had to go for some type of physio. I think it was ultrasound or something. But for a couple of years, my lower back, it would hurt and I didn't want anybody touching it. And the following year when I had my daughter, I'd had a natural childbirth because there was no way I was letting a doctor, I don't care how good they were, stick a needle like anywhere near where I got stepped on. But I have to tell you this. I had nightmares for a long, long time. I would wake up in the middle of the night screaming. I'd be soaking wet with sweat. I swore that animal was in the bedroom. I could feel her hot breath breathing on my back. And my husband would wake me up and say, "You're just dreaming. It's okay." But I'd make him turn the lights on to make sure that she wasn't in the room. It sounds ridiculous, but it was traumatic. But the other thing, that cow, that heifer, she was beautiful. Like, but there was just something about her. Her eyes shook. I said to my husband, either she goes or I go. So she went. So I said, I want to be there when the trucker comes. I want to see her with my own eyes, leave this farm just so I can make the connection up here. So trucker gets to the barn and I said, like, I don't care. Just send her to for meat. Like, no other farmer should have this psycho. She's going to end up killing somebody. So we go in the barn. He's already there. He's like, why are you getting rid of this animal? She's beautiful. I said, because she's attacked me twice and probably would have killed me this last time. So I said, watch. I walk up to her. She starts snorting. Her eyes are jumping like a little freak. I don't know what her problem was. Maybe she didn't like my perfume. I asked multiple vets. They didn't know. Like, I don't know what it was because I never, ever, ever hit the cows. I never, like, I treated them like they were big dogs. Like big dogs that weighed 15, 16, 1700 pounds. Some of our cows I couldn't even see over when I was in between the two of them because I'm 5'4". Some of them were taller than that. So anyways, she started acting up and I said, just get rid of her. Like, just make them aware that she's kind of a psycho. So I don't know what happened to her. I don't care. As long as she was gone. We made it clear, like, she had some issues, but I think her issue was me. I don't know. It was the weirdest thing. But I was so scared because, you know, I was young. And I thought that I was going to be paralyzed. It was a really scary time. Oh, I could make a whole video on different times when I had been hurt, when my husband had been hurt. Yeah, that's probably the scariest time. I mean, I've been kicked in the head, thrown up against the wall. I've been chased by cows. Like, sometimes they're just, I don't know, they're having an off day, I guess, like people. So that was the scariest time, I would say, that I can remember for me. There was another time whenever I was stuck 50 feet up in a silo and couldn't get down, and I'm terrified of heights. That was interesting. So that was my experience as a dairy farmer in a nutshell. I mean, I could go on and tell you so many different stories, and if you have any questions and would like me to do another video like this, ask me some questions, leave them below in the comment section, and I'm happy to do a Q&A or do another makeup video and talk a little bit about it. But I really did love farming. I love the cows, and the reason we're no longer farming is because my husband was diagnosed with cancer shortly after we were married, and he got very, very ill after many years of having chemo in and out of the hospital, that he had to have a bone marrow transplant to save his life, so we had to sell the farm, which was very, very sad. It was very sudden, unexpected. We weren't prepared. It was really, really hard to leave the cows, to see them sold off, because we had worked so hard in those 20 years and we were finally starting to see, you know, a couple generations of cows, the cow families. We were getting excellent cows. great milk production. We were one of the top herds in our county at the end, and it just would have been nice to see how far we could have went, but life happens. Let me know if you enjoyed this type of video, and in the meantime, go check out this video, things that I stopped buying after turning 50 and how I saved some money. I'll see you soon. Bye.